Ever feel like you're never going to get better at this thing? What's going on? It's Jason Heath, and I've had so many times in my life where I just feel like I'm not getting any better at the bass. It's a common problem, and it's so frustrating because it just feels like you're dumping your practice time down the toilet. In recent years, I feel like my progress has been sticking and I've been learning more efficiently, and it is thanks in part to my internet buddy, Christopher Sutton. In this video, we're going to walk through this course, we're going to hear from Christopher, and we're going to take a look at how to apply these techniques to the bass.
I had lost my passion or lost my dedication a bit to music at that point in my early 20s. I think partly because I had accepted that I wasn't talented, I wasn't gifted. I was never going to be an incredible musician. So it was fine to dabble, but I had kind of lost faith in myself, I guess. But through my work, I started doing this thing called ear training, which in that context meant kind of studio audio engineer type ear training, where you're listening to a recording, judging the frequency bands, telling if something's shifted up 3 dB in the 10 kilohertz range kind of stuff, or listening to a recording of a cymbal and telling whether your algorithm added reverb or distorted it slightly, like all of this really pinpoint accuracy kind of listening. And there were these really cool training CDs that got me listening in that way.
All right, let's dive into musical Superlearning. So here we go. We've got this preliminary page where you'll find all the materials and support for musical Superlearning. It's always helpful to have some sort of community aspect like this for a course to really hold yourself accountable and go through the steps, because I think a lot of us know what we should do, but unless we're really being held accountable by other people and through a structured program like this, we just don't really get it done. So each week they hold live informal Musical U drop-in sessions online. That is very helpful. Discover Double Bass, I have a couple courses out with them. They have a similar sort of community element that Jeff Chalmers manages, and that is really helpful for people learning. Okay, we'll check out this welcome video from Christopher.
Thanks for taking a minute to watch this video. I'm sure you're eager to dive into musical Superlearning. You've made a fantastic decision to take this course. You've chosen to believe in a real possibility that most people are not yet clued into, that learning music can happen much, much faster than we're all used to.
Yeah, that's something that I think we all get trapped in, is just thinking it's this endless process. And I know that I have been guilty of spinning my wheels so many times, so I'm really interested to see what we got here.
As you go through the course, do the exercises as instructed.
Yeah, that's one of those things. I think we skip steps so often when we're trying to figure out a new skill, like deliberate practice, which is what another term for what we're digging into here in musical Superlearning. So yeah, it's important, especially when you're getting started, to just really follow the program as outlined. I love to live in a system, and then once I'm through the system, I'll incorporate bits and pieces into my own life. But I do think it's really important to just kind of follow the steps when you're learning something new like this.
As you're going to hear Greg say during the course, the way learning really works is not the way we've all been led to believe, and the way we've been taught to practice. What really works is often strange, uncomfortable, might even feel like a waste of time. Exercises in the course might seem too easy or too hard, or you might find yourself wondering, why would I do that? Please just trust the process and follow the instructions. I remember in one of my first conversations ever with Greg, we were talking about how funny adult learners can be and the things we do that trip us up. And he shared this saying that if at first you don't succeed, try doing what your teacher told you to do the first time.
Yeah, that's one of those things. I've worked with more adult learners as I've gone on in my teaching career. And I used to kind of not like working with adult learners, frankly, when I was young, like in my 20s, because I was just used to the way, teenagers operated, and I think kids that age are just a little more used to just being told what to do. You want to know the why a lot more as an adult learner, which I get. I am an adult learner in many things in my life, but oftentimes just kind of taking that beginner's mind and just really following to the letter, and I know that can feel weird for an adult, that just following to the letter, the process being outlined, that's a great place to start.
Now, I know that's a funny saying, but it's also really true, and I know I'm prone to this myself. You hear advice or you take a course, and as you absorb the information, there's part of your brain drawing on all your past experience and all your personal specifics, and it's saying, well, I see what they're trying to do there, but I think I know better. And then you don't quite follow the instructions.
Yep.
If you're anything like me, that happens. So
Me too.
in this case, it's really important that you trust the teacher and try not to let all those past conceptions of what learning and practice should look like throw you off from developing this new approach. The second tip is a small addition to that one. Try your best to follow the daily pacing of the course. You're going to have access to each week's module all at once, but it is designed to be daily lessons, each one with an exercise or two for you to do.
Yeah, there is that tendency when you get all the info at once to just kind of dive in and not do the pacing as outlined. But ideas take time to marinate and sink in, and so just taking your time and being patient can really, really be important when learning something new.
Greg has brought a ton of neuroscience understanding into the design of this course, and timing is really a huge factor in how the brain learns.
Yep.
So I don't want you to feel guilty or frustrated if your schedule gets thrown off a bit here and there, but this is absolutely not a course where you can just blitz through each module in one big session each week. Please follow the intended daily sequencing as much as you possibly can. If you do these two things, carrying out the exercises as instructed and according to the intended schedule, I promise that as the course goes on, you'll not only see it really pay off, but we'll also explain to you why you were asked to do things in certain ways along the way. You can expect a level of community and personal support from the team way beyond what's normal in online learning.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, is just taking advantage of the community aspect. Learning in a bubble is so challenging, and bouncing ideas off and just sharing your progress and actually kind of having a bit of accountability in terms of that is so key in getting better. It's so challenging to just learn on your own, and the community aspect of what they offer really helps.
But if you're new to Musical U, then I really want to encourage you to get involved and speak up whenever you like. You're going to find a discussion in every lesson of the course where you can respond not only to the question or prompt that we've put there, but also share any observations or ask any questions you have. If you have a question that's not about that lesson, you'll also find a Q&A discussion in each module, and we'll be picking up on some of those questions in the live Q&A sessions with Greg. I would also encourage you to read through those discussions as you go through the course. We are always delighted to find our course students actually have insights and discoveries to share with one another that can be just as valuable and interesting as the course lessons themselves.
Totally.
So it's great to dive in there. Even if you don't have a burning question or a comment to share, just read through and you'll be amazed how much more you can pick up. Don't be shy. We are here for you on the Musical U team to help make sure you succeed. And you'll be amazed how much you can pick up from the students alongside you as well. So dive into those discussions and make the most of it. That's it from me. Thank you again for joining us for Musical Superlearning. I am so excited to see what we can help you accomplish.
Oh, cool. We got all these like hello from the different places you're at. Yeah, so the community aspect you can just see right here. Very cool.
I'm really excited to be teaming up with everyone to help you make your musical goals happen faster, easier, and to be able to perform with more confidence. It really is true that you can do that, and you'll start to be amazed soon. You know, something that's really weird that most people don't know is that learning works really, really differently than the way most people think it does. The few people who actually do this and figure it out and keep doing it are the ones that seem gifted and talented, but anyone can do it. You can do it, I can do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's true, and it sounds like something that people repeat over and over. And this brings to mind The Talent Code by, I believe, Daniel Coyle. Wonderful book about myelination in the brain and how that all works. And I'll probably bring that up as we keep going through this.
We tend to judge learning in the moment. That is, I just did something, and now it's later and I'm going to do it again. And is it better? If it is, we think we've learned. If it isn't, we think I better stop doing that and do something that makes it easier or makes it look better. That's actually not the case. What research has found is that if you actually make things a little bit harder on yourself and then work through the confusion without getting up, the benefits are way, way more than any other way.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that I've been aware of and have learned from so many teachers over the years. I remember working with Jeff Bradisich, the wonderful teacher at the University of North Texas, and he had these 7 rhythms he would just go through with people for various passages, and that is an example of making things more challenging and then solving problems in kind of a 3-dimensional way.
I'd like to use a quote here from Robert and Elizabeth Bjork, two researchers at UCLA who've researched this phenomenon quite a bit. He was asked in a podcast, what is the biggest mistake you think people make when it comes to learning? And here's his answer. To the degree you interpret current performance as a valid measure of learning, you will do all sorts of things wrong as a teacher, as a student managing your own studying, in terms of judgments you make about whether you can stop studying, to keep studying, what you should study. All of these things are kind of at risk, so to speak, if you interpret your current performance as learning. And what he's talking about is one particular device called contextual interference. Contextual interference is something that occurs when we take a thing that we've been trying to learn and then try to do it in a totally different way. For instance, if we were going to memorize a few lines of a famous speech, one way to memorize it more quickly and to use it in critical thinking, that is, intellectual improvising, if you will, is to learn, instead of beginning to end, learn every other word.
Yeah, this is the sort of thing that I find super helpful. And again, it's kind of like turning things into games. It's a way of accelerating your learning, and I always think of it as like a three-dimensional learning. I remember the wonderful bass teacher Ed Barker, at principal bassist of the Boston Symphony. He would talk about practicing in different ways, kind of like taking a ball of clay, and it's like every time you work on something a different way, you're making a groove in that clay, but you're also widening it.
And then start on the second word and learn every other word. It would slow you down at first, but it produces greater learning in the long run. When we do this, it produces what researchers call desirable difficulty, a state of difficulty that makes the brain learn at a much higher rate.
Yeah, that's something that's talked about in the talent code also.
I call it the burn of learning, or the blurn. Feel the blurn. What we're going to do is make things slightly more difficult for a short period of time so that you can break through your current level that you're stuck at and make lots of progress.
All right, this is cool. This is Greg really breaking down how this system works with Stuart. This is brilliant, and we're going to check some of this out, and then I'm going to show you how I think about this on the bass.
Now, Stuart has already picked a passage that he would like to work on. Let's start with this. Would you play that passage very slowly, just so we can know what it is?
Okay. You want to know the song?
Sure.
Okay, this is the song "Pressure" by Billy Joel. Some of the fun of this, which may be part of the problem, there's moving tempos in it, which Billy wrote in. There's like a part that the gut speeds up and then it slows down. So that may be part of my issue with this part, because it's right after some of that. So here's the part.
All right, so I have got a similar kind of thing that I have struggled with over the years from Mozart's 40th Symphony, the first movement. So let's check out my similar issue on bass. It's one of those passages that bass players have been reckoning with for years. It starts off with this slurred section. Then, and then short notes. It goes on and on from there. It's much faster than that. But what I thought I would do to really, really hone it in here is to take this bar, measure 119, which goes. The challenge of this section right here is that you have to either do a gnarly string crossing, like something like that, or do a whole bunch of shifting, like this. So, the first thing that Greg would tell me to do is to slow it way down. So I'm going to do that. And what I'm noticing already is that my intonation isn't quite as spot on as I would like it. That high D is a little suspect. So let's try to just focus on that. I'm enlisting the help of my D string to really, and kind of adding to the challenge level by doing this. Okay. Okay, so let's work on this in a more three-dimensional way to really kind of harness what they're talking about in musical super learning. Let's make this more challenging than it needs to be. And we're going to solve a lot of things in the process. I'm going to start by actually adding a slur pattern in. So I'm going to play like this. And what this is doing is this is forcing me to really think about these shifts. It's really easy to become isolated in these sort of short passages and not really realize how we're connecting. So I'm going to do that a few more times. I'm going to slow it down and really think through these shifts. And what I'm also doing, you can see I'm adding in open strings where it makes sense to really test these notes against other notes on the bass. And I could turn a drone on and do many other things to, again, sort of up the challenge level and try to really like nail this passage.
The first thing is we want to find a place where that is perfect.
Yeah, this is such an important key, and I was just working on this with an adult student recently. It's like, let's find, there is a speed, there is a way that it can be perfect. And this is brilliant the way that Greg lays this out here.
Some tempo so slow that you wouldn't make a mistake, right? Whatever that tempo may be.
Yep.
If it's one note a day, that would work.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't need to go that slow, but could I hear you play this at a tempo that is so slow that you're sure, if your life depended on playing it right once and you had one shot, how slowly would you play it? And could you show us that?
Sure. Let's see here. Oh.
And in my experience, most people don't go slow enough. Go radically slow, like yim, boom, bing, boom. Andy Riccitti, the bass professor at Northwestern University, bassist in the Milwaukee Symphony. I remember talking to him for an interview years ago, and he was talking about how the brain doesn't really think about speed the way that we think it does. And he was using an analogy of sprinters, thinking about starting off from the blocks and how like problems solved at a radically slower tempo will often, in fact, generally, maybe, translate to those faster tempos. So the way is not the way, which is kind of what this whole course is about. So Greg's finding the tempo. See him tapping on the metronome. I love the expression on Greg's face.
Okay, very nice. So that's what we want. And for anyone watching this, this is a very difficult step for a lot of students, especially if you're more of a earlier in your learning journey.
Or later in your learning journey. I make this mistake all the time.
Be sure to play slowly. Many times in my practice classes, people say, okay, now play it slower. Da, 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 da. No, I'll play it slower. Da, 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 da. No, I'll play it slower.
Me too. I have to tell myself that every day.
And it's very hard to tell. So really push yourselves to slow down when you're trying these. Thank you, Stuart. That was perfect. I've got about 72 for that. If we think of those.
And just measuring it, figure out what that tempo is. I think that's really important. Use your sense to, try it out, experiment, but then get a number down so that you can track this, and that will help a lot with the progress.
So we've got a metronome number that gives us a reference. 72 is our perfect. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to even the whole thing out. I'd like you to, and we're encouraging desirable difficulty, which we now know what that is this week. And that is, it should be a little hard. Now we don't care about the pauses and the mistakes. We're actually going to start encouraging them. This first stage isn't as hard as the others, but let's see where we're at. Now, would you please play it again, but all note values will be even. So
yeah, I think this is super helpful to just even out everything. So it's just a series of equal note values. No matter what the passage is, that can be extremely helpful. It's one of those secret tactics for learning just about anything in my experience.
So there's no longer a rhythm, da, 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 da. Instead, it's da, 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 da.
This can be
da,
remarkably
da,
challenging to do when you're starting out.
Da, da, da.
You want
Try that.
to just do single notes versus the,
Oh no, please play all the notes as part of the chord, but
Okay.
every moment that you play something, it should be the same duration as everything else. So it's
Okay.
all
Yeah, equalize
even.
the rhythm.
Maybe we think of it as everything being a quarter note
Yeah,
or
just
something like that.
even
I
out.
will say that at times I feel like I've gotten this before we go and perform. I get on stage and then I put a ton of reverb or a delay on it and play single notes, which is where this problem's come from. I'm like, you can call it faking it.
Well, I've never met a musician who doesn't.
Yeah, there you go.
It's
All right.
not that we don't make mistakes, it's that we cover them up well.
Yes, there you go. All right, so do single note.
Really slow.
And see, I'm sure he thinks that that's slow enough, and it might be slow enough, but I often find that I even need to slow down even more and really give myself time to think. Yum, bum, bum. Again, the body, the brain isn't going to remember tempo the way you probably think it will. And so it's all about solving these puzzles in whatever tempo and really, really solving them so that you have that confidence. And then tempo will come once the problem has been explored and solved.
First, did you notice how that made you focus a little bit more?
Yeah,
It
you,
did.
you can see
Yeah.
in his
That's always
face.
a good thing. That's a lot of what we're working with. Secondly, I may be wrong about this, but I noticed you played the bass note every time there was a top note. Is that really the way it goes?
No.
Just so you notice things that you think you've learned it, but you might have not quite. See, so now he's going to re-examine that.
You can see that just this stage starts to get a little bit hard. So everyone out there
Yeah, it's
who's
an awareness
watching,
thing.
don't worry if this first stage seems a little bit hard. This is your first experience with desirable difficulty, making things more difficult on yourself in a specific way to create improvement, which we will see here in a little bit. Let's try that again, as written, but with all even rhythms.
Okay, but without doing all those.
When there's a bass note, there's a bass note. When there isn't, that sort of thing. Nice and slow.
Okay.
All right, let's try this out and see how this works on the bass. I'm going to try to break it down and solve just like Greg is doing with Stuart here. Now, because these are equal note values, we don't have to even out the rhythm like Greg suggests, and that's a great tactic for a lot of passages. But what I am going to do is apply rhythms to this, which is another thing that they dig into in musical superlearning. And I'm going to go through and do a series of rhythms that Jeff Braditich taught me. I'm going to start by playing short, long. So I'm going to go like this. And what you're doing by doing this is adding what I call a thinking pause. So I'm playing two notes fairly quickly, and then thinking. Now I'm going to flip it. I'm going to do long, short, long. I'll do that again. Oops, got it. See, it reveals things. Try that again. And at this point, I might even take a little break. In fact, I am going to take a little break and stretch it out. And I find that I'm really, really, really focused when I'm doing this sort of work, so I need to give myself a mental and a bit of a physical break. It can just be 30 seconds or something like this. I would normally not be talking through my break, but making a video. And I often try to have a state change after about 20, 25 minutes, go outside, do that sort of thing. So with this sort of deliberate practice, musical superlearning, I'm trying to be as focused as I possibly can, but then give myself breaks as needed. I'm now going to do short, short, long, long. So it's going to be like this. I'm almost tripletizing it. Ba ba da ba ba da da da. This is another one of these Brattlestage rhythms that I love. Do that a few times. And maybe slow it down. I'm playing bass for forever and I still practice things way too fast. Now let's move those short notes. So we're going to go long, short, short, long, like this. Do it again. And now long, long, short, short, long, long, short, short. I sort of whiff that tap note, so try it again. There we go, one more time. Two more rhythms, and these are the 7 rhythms that Jeff Brattlestage taught me decades ago. I still use them all the time. I'm going to go long, short, 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 long. It's like bum, ba 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 bum, ba 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 bum. And I'm going to slow it down. I'm still getting a thinking pause, but I'm increasing the number of short notes in the interval. And I'm going to go short, 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 long. So ba 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 bum, ba 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 bum. And by going through those 7 variations, I find that that helps just about any passage, particularly something that's in 4/4 like this, though you can equalize the notes and do those rhythms over anything. That is a wonderful place to start, just kind of generically in terms of deliberate practice and musical super learning. And at that point, if I go back and play it still slowly but separate notes, I find that I've really got that passage much better under my fingers. But there are more ways to vary it too. I can start up bow. And you'd be amazed what a mental shuffle that does to you. I can do some slurs. I can slur 2. I can slur 3, which is a little funky but works. I can slur 4. I can do staccato notes in the same bow. And each one of these things is looking at the passage a different way, like Ed Barker talks about. It's like deepening and widening that groove. And at this point, I'd probably take a break and go on and work on something else and then come back to this passage later on in the day or perhaps the next day. And I'm making it more challenging and I'm solving these puzzles. And by doing that, I'm just deepening my understanding of this lick. I'm getting it into my nervous system. I'm myelinating my brain so that this becomes a more automatic gesture. And I find that this is a wonderful way to practice. There's so much more in here, so then we take what we learned and we practice it, and we've got all sorts of the dreaded plateau. I know about that. And again, all this great depth here. Picking music, you know, this workbook that we've got here. Next day's practice exercises. This is just laid out for you to come back and regularly work on every single day. Very cool. And here we go, some exercises for evening out the rhythm. And then what this actually sounds like if you even it out. So useful. And then you can change the rhythm. So we've got this reverse dotted rhythm. Just like Jeff Brattlestage taught me back in the day. And then recovery, take a break. Take a break for a couple minutes, give the brain a chance to reset, give a chance for these things to get absorbed in the brain, in the body. It's so important to take these breaks and to come back fresh. We got a review and going through, there's a quiz, and this is all so helpful. If you really follow the steps, you will just be amazed at what a difference this will make in terms of really making this sort of knowledge stick. And that's just the first module. We have all these other modules. We have the deliberate practice module, which we're just getting into here, talking about on this video. Retrieval practice and musical memory, mindset and flow, more Q&A calls, group coaching. There's so much in this course. If you want to up your practice game, check it out. If you're watching this video the first week it comes out, you will help out the channel by picking up this course. And if you're watching in the future, pick it up anyway. It's really cool. Thanks for watching, and check out this video we've got linked up if you want to dig deeper into these topics.